Hello. If you are new around here, my name is Kathy Martin and I'm the creator of the Pre-Algebra Teachers Middle School Math membership. This video that I'm going to be sharing with you in just a second is an encore presentation of an interview that was completed during the Middle School Math Summit. Please note that any freebies, links, or resources that may have been mentioned in this video may not be available any longer. Be sure to check out the Middle School Math Summit in July in this coming summer. Until then, enjoy this encore presentation. Hello and welcome to the Middle School Math Summit. I'm your host, Kathy Martin, and I am so excited to bring you our interview with the one and only Johanna Kuiper. Johanna, thank you so much for being part of this event. I am so excited to chat and talk all things math tasks for critical thinking. For those who may not know you, can you share a little bit about yourself before I dive into all of my questions?
Absolutely. So, hi, I'm Johanna Kuiper. I am a middle school math teacher in Oregon, and all of my experience with teaching so far has been with eighth grade and Algebra 1. Except for this year, they threw seventh grade at me. So, I taught seventh grade for the first time this year, and it was a wild ride for sure. I never knew the so distinct differences between a seventh grader and an eighth grader until I taught seventh grade this year. I bless seventh grade teachers, that's for sure. And what's crazy is being a teacher was not something I dreamed of, because I feel like so many teachers have that dream from when they're little, like, I'm gonna be a teacher. But that was never me. I didn't declare a major till my sophomore year, and I only declared it because I had to. And I was like, yeah, teaching sounds fun. Like, I like math, let's do it. And then I really fell in love with being in the classroom, being around students, and just growing their creativity and curiosity for math. And teaching is something I ended up loving and made a double career out of it, being in the classroom and also with my business, Miss Kuiper's Classroom. My experience has been at a Title I school, which means that the majority of people, or the majority of the students' families, living below the poverty line. And that usually makes for a really dynamic group of students, both academically and behaviorally. And one of those being that kids come to my class having these huge gaps in their understanding, which leads to them feeling like they can't do math and they can't be good at math because they feel like they can't catch up, which is a major reason why I started doing these critical thinking math tasks in my classroom.
Well, I'm really excited to dive more into this. And I actually really like that you are teaching in a Title I school, because if this can work, so to speak, in a Title I school, it can work anywhere in theory, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So just so that we're all on the same page, can you define what you mean by critical thinking tasks so that we all are starting from the same place?
Yes. So what I mean by critical thinking math task is I'm thinking about a warm up that's not the traditional do this problem from the lesson we learned yesterday or spiral review. It's an intentional math adjacent activity, meaning that it still relies on math and reasoning skills, but it's not grade level content. It's used to prime students' minds at the beginning of class, for creativity, and most importantly, giving them a boost of confidence in math because it's a quick win. And just a kid having a positive experience at the beginning of a math class can really have great impacts the rest of class. So with students, I generally call it a thinking task, not a warm up, but it's essentially the same thing because it gets their brains warmed up for the rest of the day.
I love that, especially because if you had a kid who struggled with, say, yesterday's lesson, and now they're walking in into a warm up that is from yesterday's lesson, it just piles on the crappiness, you know?
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
too, it I feel like warm-ups, like the traditional sense, they can take a really long time because of that. Whereas these critical thinking tasks can take 5 minutes or less. It's just a small bite of something that students have fun with. It's math related and you get to move on afterwards. And if a kid doesn't get it, usually that quick review at the end of like, all right, someone tell us how you solved it. They get it and we get to move on and everyone feels good about it.
Before I ask you about, more specifically some of these critical thinking tasks, I'd love to know, how do we set this up so that we can incorporate more of these more often? Because I feel like, I know for me, like I do a warm up and then I do direct instruction. And then sometimes we do stations. And so it's like my critical thinking tasks are kind of plugged in once a week on a Thursday here. And then maybe it might be a Monday here, or, like I'm definitely not, it's not fluid. And I'm not, what am I trying to say? Like, it's not like a regular part of my class where it sounds like this is very regular for you. And so how do we make this more of a regular routine versus like this compartmentalized
Mm-hmm.
thing, if that makes
Yeah.
sense?
So I use them as warm-ups. So if you already do warm-ups in your classroom, this is a great way for you to like swap 1 or 2 days a week instead of doing like the traditional whatever warm-up you use. You're using one of these math adjacent thinking tasks. So I start off my class as soon as the bell rings. I go over the agenda for today. So like we're going to start off with our thinking task, then we're going to move into our direct instruction, or we're going to go work at whiteboards, and then we'll kind of do our notes at the end. So I'll give them the summary. And then after we do the summary, I do what's called a supply roundup. And this is where students have 1 minute to go grab all the materials they need for the next activity. And this piece I think is important because it makes sure that every kid is set up for success, but there's also a very specific time limit to it. And it was honestly inspired way back when I was in high school when I was babysitting, and this girl like hated picking up her stuff. But if you turn anything into a game for kids, they're more likely to do it than if you're just like, can you please go pick up your toys? It's like, you see how fast you can pick up your toys in like,
30
or whatever it
seconds.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it having
Oh,
students
because
like,
they will dilly dally. They will take
oh
all
yeah,
period to get their stuff.
exactly, because it's like they have such a innate anxiety for math and they don't want to do it, that they're going to take as long as they can to prolong the inevitable. So the supply roundup, I usually do the warm-ups or the thinking tasks on mini whiteboards, and I do one per team. And the reason I only do one per team is that way they have to collaborate together on the task itself. And sometimes a calculator too, if there's any computation involved. I don't want students to feel like they're left out because they can't do any computation. Then I'll put the slide up on the screen. I'll give a quick explanation, especially if it's a new type of task that we haven't done before. And then I set the timer 3 to 5 minutes and I walk around and helping kids and like seeing what they're doing, ask them to collaborate with another team if someone's stuck. And then after those 5 minutes, we review it and we're done. And that's it.
So two questions. Do you think that this is best as a warm up versus like an exit ticket? That's question one. And then two, are you helping the kids at all? Or are you more like reminding them that it's okay to struggle, or like ask your neighbor, or like how much are you helping?
Good questions. So, yes, I think it's better as a warm up than as an exit ticket, only because it's helping students transition from whatever they had before math into the critical thinking skills that they need for math class. And so it primes them for those reasoning skills, those collaboration skills, and makes the transition more seamless into like actual deep math than if I had done it as an exit ticket. And you could definitely do it as an exit ticket or as a brain break or just like a fast finisher activity. That's not my style because I like it as a warm up, but you do what's best for your students because you know them way better than I do. So, yeah.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then while students are doing the activity, it depends. If they are all like working and collaborating in their team, I can be a little bit more hands off and be like their encourager, or I can take attendance during this time, or if a student walks in late, I can deal with that. So it really depends on the cognitive level of the task. And we'll get more into the tasks later, but some of them, kids want me to be a little bit more hands on But other ones, we've done them so often that kids like know the routine of how that one works. And so it's easy peasy for them. Um, yeah. So one thing also with these critical thinking tasks is if they ask for help, I try really hard to like throw a question back at them that isn't necessarily giving away or isn't, sorry, isn't taking away any of the thinking for them. And that's something that I'm trying really hard to do because I want kids to be able to use those reasoning skills to work through it themselves. So a lot of times when students ask me a question, the question I ask in response is, I don't know, what do you think? And they'll give me the stuff that they say, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. And I walk away. That's it. So most of the time, it's just like that.
Sometimes I think they need someone to say, like, you're good. You know what I mean? Like they need someone to just validate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially students who have that tougher time in math and have that anxiety going into it. All they need is that
Yes.
validation and they
Yes.
can continue forward.
Okay, so let's dive into what everyone's waiting for. So, can you share some of your favorite types of critical thinking tasks and when we can use these?
Yes. So one of my favorite is crack the code. And the way this one works is there is 5 3-digit numbers. And with each 3-digit number, it'll say something like one of these digits is correct and in the right spot. And the next one will have 3 digits and it'll say one of these numbers is right, but in the wrong place. And then the next one will say none of these numbers are correct.
Oh,
And so it's kind of like a process of elimination based on these 5 clues to figure out what is the 3-digit code. And this one works really great on whiteboards because students can write all 5 down. And then for the one that
erase.
says, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So for the one that isn't correct, they can go through and erase all, like, say it was 9, 3, and 6, all the 9s, 3, and 6s from the other clues because they know those aren't going to be right. So I really, really love these. It's so much fun. Kids have such a great time with it. And after a while, you can kind of see like the pattern that goes through it, where if the first one says this number is correct and in the right spot, but in the next one it says this number is correct but in the wrong spot, but they're both in the hundreds place, you know that number cannot be in the solution. And so kids can start picking up on those patterns. And that's really great because patterns is a huge piece of math, identifying those patterns. So I've actually created some 4-digit ones as well to really like up the level for some kids. Uh, some hate it, some love it, but 3 digits kind of like the good sweet spot for those crack the code. Yeah.
And if anyone's wondering, like if anyone's having a hard time like imagining this, you're going to actually show us visually what all this looks like in our bonus interview. You're going to give us more examples. So if you haven't updated your or upgraded your ticket, you're going to want to grab a VIP ticket because Johanna has this amazing bonus resource.
Yes. And visually, it's so much easier to understand what I'm talking about because I know what I'm talking about. So I can picture it in my head as I'm going through, but maybe not for you yet, especially if you haven't seen any of these style of activities before. So upgrade. One of the other ones that I really like to use is emoji math, or this one website called Math Mashup. And what it is like it's one of those problems that you sometimes see like as you're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, where it's like, what is the value of this picture in this expression or this equation? And it's like butterfly plus frog equals 15. And the next one is like butterfly plus frog times frog is this. And emoji math. And those are really fun because students are literally doing math, but it feels more fun because it's pictures and emojis. So that's a really good one. And those usually take 3 minutes or less for most kids, at least in my experience. So if you're looking for like a really quick warm up for a day, those are good to go to.
Is that website that you shared, Math Mashup, is that something that is free or you have to pay for it?
It's free. They have like a free download. But honestly, if you Google math mashup problems, you're going to get way more than if you actually went to their website. Because
Okay.
other people have made similar emoji math style problems. So you're going to get way more by Googling math mashup problems or emoji math than if you actually were to use their website. So, pro tip.
Cool. Yeah, pro tip.
Um, Another one that I really like is a number pyramid. So picture like a pyramid where there's 5 blocks on the bottom, then 4, 3, 2, 1, all stacked on each other. And there are numbers dispersed throughout the whole thing, but there's also gaps. And the goal is for students to take 2 boxes and add them together to get the number that goes on top. And so
Okay.
because there's blanks dispersed throughout, sometimes they have to subtract, sometimes they add to get the top number. And so it
Oh,
takes a lot more brain power. So that one I'd say is a little bit of a longer warm up, probably about 5 minutes. But I really like those because sometimes you can do them with multiplication and some as addition. So you can really get best of both worlds depending on what you want.
those are the basic foundational skills that every kid needs.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And those ones, if you Google I think if you just Google number pyramid, they'll pop up. So some of these are like names that I've made up, and some of them are like actual names of things. Like the next one is a number grid. And I don't think that's the actual name for it. That's just what I call it. But it's like a 4x4 or 5x5 grid where all the rows or columns add up to the same number. So you're having to figure out what number goes in each spot to make sure that like column A is 25, column B is 25, column C is 25, and same thing with the rows. Those ones can get a little bit more heady because you also can't repeat a number. So if I were to use a 1, I can't use a 1 in any other spot. So that's a
That
good
almost
one.
sounds hard.
Yes, they can be. So yeah. And usually they get like really big numbers. So like the column has to add up to 101. That way, like you can use more variety of numbers. Because the smaller the sum of the number, the more like not room for creativity in the numbers or something. So most of them will add up to like a bigger number, like 75 or 101. But those are fun ones to do as well. The last two I have are estimation based ones. So estimation is a huge skill. I think middle school students
I'm
need
so bad at
so,
it.
so much because I feel like estimation is something you do in like elementary school, but once you're
Yeah.
done with it, there's like nothing else on it. So really giving that estimation back into it is cool. So the first one is Estimation 180, and it's literally a website, it's free, where there's 180 days of estimation problems. And what's fun is a lot of them tie in together. So like the very first one is a picture of a man standing by a fence, and your goal is to estimate how tall this man is. And then day 2, you're supposed to estimate how tall his wife is based on tall you found out he was yesterday. And so it's like a series. And like some work together like that and others are separate. Um, but it's a really cool way for students to like use estimating skills of like, oh, he looks as tall as my dad and my dad's 6'5". I bet he's 6'5". And then kids who guess it right, they are so happy that they got it right. And like, yeah, it's estimation and it's fun, but it's not necessarily the most amazing thing ever. So it's really fun to have kids like get excited about that. So estimation 180 is a great tool. And then the last one is Estimysteries. So like another kind of estimation, but this one is really cool because it gives you clues to help you figure it out more. So picture like a jar of marbles, and it'll give you like 4 clues to help you figure out what number it could be. And like one of the clues will be the answer is a multiple of 3. So you know that it can't be 25 because that's not a multiple of 3. And then like the clues get progressively narrow it in. But those are really fun
That
because
sounds good because
yeah,
you have to know like you have to know what your multiples of 3, right? And you have to kind of have some background information that the kids can tap into. Ooh,
yes. Yeah. And I like using these with like a hundreds chart in like a dry erase sleeve so kids can mark off numbers as they go through instead of having to write down numbers in like their notebook or on a whiteboard. It just helps them to like cross numbers off instead. So
Oh,
that's
that's a
a
good
little
idea.
fun tip for you.
You
Yeah.
just put that in like a paper protector.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or you can get like dry erase sleeves and they're a little bit thicker. So it's like a little bit sturdier, but it still has that dry erase surface on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the critical thinking tasks are my favorite ones that I use on a regular basis, kind of rotate through them. Some you can find more prevalently than others, like the mystery and the estimation. There are tons of those, but like the emoji math, number pyramids, and grids are a little bit more niche and harder to find. So use a
Do you have
variety.
any, do you have any like any rhyme or reason of why you pick one like Monday versus, or you just like whatever you feel like?
It's kind of whatever I feel like. And I try not to do the same thing 2 days in a row. So like if I did an estimation on Monday, I'm not going to do an estimation on Tuesday just because I like to switch it up because I get bored. So
Yeah,
if I get bored, some student is going to be bored of it too. So I like having like the fresh thing every day. Um, yeah.
I love that. Cool. All right. Well, so so talking about all these critical thinking tasks, can you tell us a little bit about what you've included in our VIP toolkit?
Yes. So in the VIP toolkit, I actually included a 10 crack the codes, 8 emoji math, and 4 number pyramids that I've made for my students. And then you get to use for your students as well. So it's really cool.
Wow.
I've ordered them a little bit from easiest to most challenging for the crack the cones. The emoji math, it's kind of like a variety. Some are geared towards like sixth grade and some are geared towards eighth grade because some have exponents, some are just addition, subtraction. And then the number pyramids, I think 2 are multiplication and 2 are addition, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's what I've included in the VIP kit. I've also included the answers so you don't have to think about it for yourself if you don't have the time to. But if you do want to take the time to, don't look at the answer key yet.
Well,
So,
that's amazing. That's like over 20 activities for us to use.
yes.
Definitely, I need some of those because that'll be nice to start incorporating, like I like that you said actually just take maybe 2 days, start with 2 days, and that's an easy way to incorporate. Where in my mind, it's like all or nothing,
Yeah,
it's like,
I definitely feel that. I'm definitely a dive in head first kind of person. And so I
yeah,
definitely need to learn to just take like 1 or 2 days to try something new, see if I like it, see if it works. And to like, if you've done like traditional warm ups every single day, kids might be like, what is this? And kind of like
yes.
throw them off. So slow roll for kids too. So yeah.
I love that.
One other thing
So,
that's in the
oh,
VIP, sorry to cut you off.
no, no, no,
I
please.
also included a short list of the links for the other ones that I talked about. So
Okay, thank
let
you
me
for that.
double check. I estimation 180, estimistries, and math mashup. I linked those in there. And I also included the tip if you Google math mashup puzzles, you'll get more than if you go to their website. So if you forget
Don't
that,
tell,
it's for
don't
you
tell them
there.
that. Don't tell them, bud.
Yeah.
Well, Johanna, this has been so wonderful. Where can we go and learn more about you online?
Yeah. So there's kind of 3 places you can find me. One is on Instagram at Miss Kuiper. So it's MISSKUIPER. So at Miss Kuiper on Instagram and TikTok, but I don't really use TikTok anymore. But you can find me there. I just won't be there too. Um, then you can also visit my website, misskuiper.com. You can find my blogs and you can also find my podcast. And that's another place you'll find me is Solving for the Undefined podcast. And I do episodes Mondays. We're on a little bit of a hiatus this time of year, but they should be coming back soon.
Your podcast is great. I love that it's like short, sweet, and like we get a little bit of math inspiration. So if you have not checked out her podcast, please do. Solving for the Undefined.
Yes.
Joanna, thank you so much. We are going to catch everyone in the bonus interview. And again, if you haven't upgraded your ticket, you're definitely going to do that. Otherwise, we will see everyone in the bonus interview. Bye for now.
Bye.